Fire it up, footballers. Jaymes here from Enemies of the Fire, coming at you with another reaction video. This time we're going to be looking at Bruce Arena, talking with Lalas. But before we get to that, have you ever worn your shirt to work inside out all day long? Put it in the comments below. So anything embarrassing like that ever happened to you? Or if you have a fun story to share, put it in the comments below about something silly that happened at work, like wearing your shirt inside out all day. But let's move on to the news. And in news this week, Gianni Infantino believes the Club World Cup this summer and the Club and the World Cup next year will grow soccer significantly in the United States. He also wants to see the U.S. men's national team become the #1. Really? We'll believe it when we see it. You are the United States of America, the greatest country in the world, Infantino said via the Herd. Colin Cowherd? He's based out in Chicago right now. That's pretty awesome. You are #1 in everything that you do. You cannot be satisfied with being number 20 in the #1 spot in the #1 sport in the world. You want to be the #1. So let's go for it. Frankly, I agree. Let's go for it. Now let's get over to that video. Bruce Arena and Lalas reaction, and we'd love to bring that to you here. We'll have the link in the description. You can go check that out on Lalas' State of the Union podcast over on YouTube, or join us here for the reaction and the discussion to it, and comment below and let us know your feelings and sentiments as we go along on this fun little journey.
Where are you
Bruce
here now, almost a third of the way into the season here
with
in terms of this project, and how good do you think that this San Jose team can ultimately be?
Well, this is certainly a challenging project. We have a lot of things organizationally that we have to get better to be among, the top teams in the league. We're far behind there, but I think there's an interest on the part of ownership to help us improve the product on the field. I think our team,
unlike years past, well, I mean, they had Almeida, who was a decent coach, so they've had decent coaches like Bruce before, but have they ever really put the money where the mouth is?
So far this year, our record is 3 wins, 5 losses, and a draw, and I think
interesting.
With a little bit of maybe a little bit smarter play on our part, we'd have 5 wins at this point. So, we're an improved team. My goal is to get us into the second half of the season where we can contend to be a playoff team. We're taking baby steps here. The team finished 29 out of 29 last year, so we can only go up. And, it's been a fairly positive start. The results aren't great, obviously, to date, but we're showing improvements, and we've begun to improve facilities here, which is helpful. So we're moving forward. I'd like us to be moving a little quicker than we are, but that's all part of the exercise. So it's been nice, good people to work with. Obviously, the weather in Northern California is fantastic. I've enjoyed that, and so we're working hard every day to try to make the club better.
Who wouldn't enjoy the sunny weather out in California? That's good to hear from Bruce.
You have a long history of being able to come into situations and suss them out very quickly. And so, without crapping on what happened before or looking too far back, but also, being honest with what the San Jose earthquakes were, when you did take a look under the hood, what were some of the immediate problems that you recognized, and how have you at least attempted so far to go about fixing those?
I would love to hear this from Greg Berhalter, that question too. Alexi, if you ever see this, I would love to hear you ask these questions to Greg, and maybe a little podcast with him.
Well, clearly, the facilities have to be better. I think your everyday environment is critically important. The league right now, many clubs that just have fantastic facilities. Our game day facilities, the stadium is fine. Our practice facilities and the facilities for our everyday activities needs to improve. And we just opened up a building that has my office and our team meeting room and lounges, and then we're building a dining hall as well. So that's a real positive. And then next is coming a second training field, and then the goal is to have a training facility, which we are hopeful that in the short term we will finalize what those plans are. So that's the start of.
Will it even be complete while you're still there, though, Bruce? I mean, it took a while for Chicago Fire to get their new setup, and the coach who the project started with was not the coach who was there when it finished. So interesting to think about.
Really moving the club forward. In terms, the other obvious area that I felt needed to improve is the roster. And we're slowly doing that, because of our current situation. I don't think we're positioned yet to bring in players of
Is he reading a script?
higher stature at this point, but hopefully that'll happen one day. So we've improved the roster. We're improving the facilities. I have a good coaching staff. I have good support from the front office, and hopefully, we showed that we're going to make progress this year.
All right, so that's the micro of the San Jose Earthquakes. Let's look at a little bit of the macro when it comes to Major League Soccer, because you've been there since the start. You've seen the good, bad, and the ugly, both on and off the field, and you've seen the progress. And it's always interesting to pick your brain as to where we are, and we love to tell other people how to spend their money and what to do. When you look at MLS in this 30th year, when you look at MLS with the 30th team, as the saying goes, you've come a long way, baby. What are some of the things, either small or big, on the field, off the field, that you, Bruce Arena, look at that if you could wave your magic wand, you would start to change when it comes to Major League Soccer?
Well, clearly everyone would say is obviously have a little bit more freedom to how you can build a team, and
That's an easy answer. And then if we were listening to Winalda in one of my previous little reactions, you could take a look at our show here on with Enemies of the Fire. It's whining about the MLS schedule disaster, and he was talking about this very idea
in terms of the salary cap, no question about that. And we have so many rules that are kind of crazy, to be honest with you. But with the World Cup coming here in 26, it's going to be similar to the 1994 World Cup, where players from around the world, they travel our country, they see the respect the sport's now getting, they see the stadiums that are being built. Everyone knows about the league. They know Lionel Messi's here, Beckham was here. Some great players have been here, and other great players are going to come. I think after the 2026 World Cup, I think players that are still in their prime are going to want to come here. And in order to do that, the league is going to have to be a little bit more lenient, maybe get rid of the limitations on the salary cap or DPs or whatever it is. But we're going to attract.
I love to hear that, and that needs to be a thing. The MLS needs to get ahead of this, because if these teams are going to be able to start, if they're going to be able to start, they need to be able to start talking to these agents and these players who are going to be coming free after the World Cup potentially, and interested in coming to America. MLS teams need to know now what those potential limitations are for their salary, and they need to know that some of these shackles that have been arbitrarily placed on them throughout the years from MLS, whether it's 3 DPs or only 2 DPs plus 4 UT22 DPs, all the money lock garbage stuff needs to go away. There needs to be a lift. Does that mean a salary cap or a salary floor? I don't know, but something needs to give there. Let me know in the comments if you disagree or agree, and how would you go about resolving that. And by the way, appreciate you guys kicking that like button and supporting Enemies of the Fire. Subscribe for more. We like to do little shows like this. We have a podcast we usually release every Thursday, and this is just a nice little reaction video that I've been starting to do.
Elite players. I have calls now from agents and clubs of very elite players around the world, and they want to come here, and they're all talking about coming in 2026. So
that's exciting to hear.
It's kind of interesting. So I think one big change is going to be, when we started in 96, and for many, many years, and even in my years at the LA Galaxy, people around the league would complain that, we're being treated differently, this and that. There's supposed to be parity. There's not going to be parity anymore. There's going to be a wide gap from the Inter Miamis of the world to the San Jose Earthquakes. I really believe that, and that's all part of the exercise. So I think that the concept of parity in the league is going to change a little bit. But I do also believe that having some kind of financial restrictions is good for the for the growth of the league. I don't think we.
I mean, maybe parity already has started to go away in MLS. I mean, Cincinnati 22 points, Columbus 21, Montreal on 3. Go over to the Western Conference, Vancouver on 23 points, LA Galaxy, last year's champion, on 3 points through 10 games.
We can get into situations that we saw many, many years ago with the NASL, where basically people tried to chase the Cosmos and it basically bankrupted the league.
Yeah, let's all buy a Pele.
I don't think we can go there yet, and but I think there's going to be more freedom financially to allow clubs to build their rosters with some of the top players around the world.
So would you be in favor of, for example, if you want to spend, fine, but a minimum when it comes to spending so that there's not a huge disparity between the top and the bottom?
Yeah, I would think so, but listen, I don't. I'm not in position to make those decisions. I'm not investing anything into a club. So,
well, we love to spend other people's money.
Yeah,
yeah, but that doesn't mean you can't have an opinion about it. I mean, especially with how many years you've been in MLS and the knowledge you've gained about it and the various limitations that you've had to deal with. I mean, I want you to weigh in, Bruce.
I can spend other people's money, not my own. And those are decisions ownership has to make. But you do see that there's a.
And I hope you could help guide them with some of that.
A new group of owners in the league that are very enthusiastic about spending money and making their teams among the elite teams in the league.
When the ownership does make decisions, obviously it affects you as a coach in terms of what you do, and you as leadership and a decision maker when it comes to what you do. So, for example, the stuff that's being bandied about right now when it comes to changing the actual season and when to play and going to a more European type of calendar, or, for example, USL coming out and talking about promotion relegation, which is a kind of evergreen topic. What are your thoughts on those two things?
Well, I don't think promotion and relegation will work in our league for some time because
for some time, if ever.
The league has worked so hard to bring in investors over
the league has worked so hard to back itself into a corner with these investors because promotion relegation is off the table. I mean, when you're bringing in a team paying $550 million, that you're not going to let that team all of a sudden go down because they had some bad business. Like, it just doesn't work that way in America. But that's why MLS has kind of backed itself in a corner, and where USL has constructed itself a bit of a dangerous rival to be. They're in the process of growing, and they may even surpass MLS here, and that's a concern that I'm concerned about, or at least not concerned about, but I think could happen with the current status quo and the way things are and the way things are going.
the years that I think that,
I mean, MLS is stagnating. It's been stagnant for a while. MLS has never been better. The MLS play has never been better, yet the games don't mean anything. They just don't. The product goes down. People don't show up in May and June, July. And that's the middle of the season when everybody else in the middle of their season, people are caring even more. Why? Because it's a season-long tournament, and usually lots of decisions, lots of decider games are happening during that middle of the season. And, like right now, by the end of these, by 4 games left in the EPL, it's already wrapped up. And that's the end of the season. But the middle of the season, so many fans locked in. It's not the case with MLS, and the numbers back that up. Promotion relegation, will it solve that? I don't necessarily know, but the MLS, it's totally off the table for many years right now with the way it's currently structured, probably because there's written contracts for some of these new teams that MLS will not engage with promotion relegation for X amount of years. I bet that's probably a thing in a contract for some of these new MLS teams that have just bought in.
San Diego comes into the league now, and if they get relegated in 2 years, they're not going to be happy. That's not part of the contract. I think they made with the league. I think that's going to be a real hard one to pull off. I don't even know who has the authority to make those rules. Is that the federation? Is that the league? Whatever. I don't know about that. The other part with changing the calendar, I've not been part of those conversations.
It's happening.
Naturally, you've seen that a lot of people are in favor of it. again, you're talking about two areas that I certainly don't have any input on, the financial decisions and the calendar. And it'll be interesting to see. I think when those decisions are made, I may no longer be coaching in this league. So,
Yeah, but
we'll wait and see.
you started out the conversation talking about the investment that the San Jose Earthquakes are
Right.
putting into the infrastructure, for example. And sometimes when people are screaming and yelling about promotion relegation, they fail to recognize that in a promotion relegation system where you do have those risks right now, maybe your ownership or other ownership wouldn't feel comfortable putting that money in that moment to do the things that have a long-term effect because they have to think in the short term out there. All right. Well,
I agree with that. I mean, in all of our professional sports leagues in this country, we don't have promotion relegation. And so that is not in the American sports culture.
do you think it
Isn't.
hurts the competition
Look
on
at Bruce smile. Is he mad or sad about that or happy? I can't tell.
the field or the growth of Major League Soccer?
Is that a wistful look in his eye? I can't tell.
It certainly does have an impact on the competition. I think, when
It certainly has an impact on the competition. MLS coach quote, boom. The lack of promotion relegation MLS impacting the competition. There you have it. And he's been in the league for years. Respected coach Bruce Arena is.
teams are battling to stay out of 18, 19, 18th, 19th, and 20th place in the EPL, it is some serious business. And, right now we're watching Arsenal play Crystal Palace, and, they're battling to stay second and not third because the difference is financially. I think those leagues is obviously very, very competitive throughout their schedule. Obviously, we don't have the same situation in MLS. So does that impact competition? Yeah, it does. No question about that.
Let's shift to the U.S. men's national team, obviously a team that you know and love and have guided over the years to some incredible and historic success. An interesting time that we are in right now, Bruce, with what this team is. I think we're 14 days away from the World Cup in 2026. And I'm hard-pressed to think at a time where we are more, there's more consternation or worry relative to this team. And at a
And when the hell do tickets release?
time, like you said, where we should kind of all be pulling in one direction right now. General thoughts as to where this team is, and I know there is kind of honor among all of you coaches, and you want to be respectful of Mauricio Pochettino right now, but you see what's going on right now, and I know
Does he? I mean, I read some scathing words and a scathing critique from Bruce Arena about Pochettino not too long ago. I think in the last 1 or 2 weeks. We probably brought it up on one of our recent Enemies of the Fire podcasts. Check those out. Subscribe for more Enemies of the Fire. Punt that like button. Appreciate you guys.
you want this team to do well right now. Should the American public out there be excited and positive in this moment as we get ready for, as you said, what is going to be an incredible summer for the game, both on and off the field?
Well, hopefully everyone is going to be excited. Those comments I made last week in my interview with Landon Donovan, Tim Howard, of course, get blown out of proportion.
Yeah.
But one thing I
Fair.
do think is that we have a very talented roster, and the results recently have not looked good. And I stated some of my opinions, and I see that players are talking about it and all. I don't know why they're not better than they are right now, but I have the confidence that they have.
Do you guys in the comments, and the viewers, YouTube people, do you guys have an idea of why the U.S. men's national team is not living up to what we think of them? Is what could be holding back this team?
When healthy, they have a really deep roster and some very good players. So there's no reason to believe that in the next
Compared to CONCACAF,
year, if they get their act together, they can't field a team in the World Cup that's going to get out of group play and hopefully move on from there.
In right before the 98 cycle, or after the 98 cycle, when you took over the U.S. men's national team, having been there, I know we were not in a good place. And again, you came in and you sussed out the situation. Is there anything that you think would apply to this team right now, again, a year away from 2026, in terms of things that can be done to, hopefully bottle some of that magic that we saw in 2002 with your team, where we were arguably a handball away from possibly going to a semifinal. And we, by the way, did it with young players, some very inexperienced players when you're looking at Landon Donovan, DeMarcus Beasley, MLS players. And so is there anything that we think we can take from the past and use it to be successful in the future?
Sure, you can. Whether that's, I don't know the direction the manager is going with that team and his thinking. I don't know that. You know, and one thing, you know, it's easy for us from the outside to comment about a team because we're not inside and we don't know what the issues are,
Right.
what they're trying to accomplish, and all of that. But I'd like to believe that at the club level, he's a very experienced coach and has had a lot of success. I would think, hopefully in the next year, if they get the right kind of competition and have the Gold Cup coming up, and obviously they'll have friendlies against good teams in 2026 because everyone's going to want to come to the country to get a feel for it. So they'll have some good games, and there's no reason to believe they can't get a more synchronized type of team and understand how they need to play and how they're going to be positioned to advance. You know, they're going to get a draw that's going to be very favorable. They're going to be a seeded team. The World Cup has expanded to 48 teams, so you know that there's going to be games in their group play they're going to win. You know, so there's no reason to believe they can't be successful. How they're going to do it, I don't know, because I'm not inside the team. You know, and you know, we all see from the outside. We don't know what the issues are inside the team. We don't know how they're trying to accomplish, how they need to play and be successful. So there's still a lot ahead. The only thing I've said is, you know, to date, this cycle's obviously been disappointing. And
almost a
they're certainly
disaster.
capable of being much better.
Bruce, you have famously kind of coalesced power and taken on multiple roles in many of the positions that you have been in. You know, obviously coach, but then also, you know, we can call it technical director, you know, sporting director, whatever you want to call it, leader, grand poobah, whatever it ends up being. You know, our wonderful late friend Ziggy Schmidt would often talk about, hey, listen, if you want me to cook the meal, you got to let me go and shop for the groceries. And I think,
and we were saying that a lot about Pochettino.
That is something that you and others
gotta let him cook
would want to have. So when you are looking at it from a administrative level, and not only the X's and O's that are going on the field, what the United States Federation did with Greg Berhalter, if you had been in that position, do you think that after the failure of 2022, that was the right move to make a change and to fire Greg Berhalter and to move on?
I don't know if did they fire Greg or they just didn't rehire him, right? I don't even remember now. They didn't offer him a new contract, right?
Well, so after the World Cup, right? And after the World Cup, there was all indications they were going to hire him, and then all the craziness with the Arenas happened. Then they rehired him. But after bowing out and the failure when it came to Copa America, do you think it was time to move on?
You know, again, I don't know who makes those decisions. You know, I do think
here comes the diplomat.
They get very influenced by social media, and a change can always be good, and it can be bad as well. I see nothing wrong making a change. You know, after I was finished in 2026, U.S. Soccer decided to make a change. And I thought I could have stayed on, but I do realize that, you know, you bring in a new person, there might be a different way of doing things. I think the issue with U.S. Soccer right now is not only was there a coaching change, but the whole organization's changed. There's different people, there's a new president, there's a new CEO, they do things differently. They appear, and I'm just looking from the outside, to be very corporate, you know, and they're moving on and they want to have their own way of doing things and a new agenda. You know, I think they wouldn't give me the time of day if I asked for it right now. They have forgotten about everything in the past and they're moving forward with the way they want to do things. So I think that's fine. You know, it's great news to see they're building a training center that we've been trying to build for 30 years, and that's finally getting accomplished. So that's positive. And then obviously they're preparing, to host the World Cup. So there's some positive things ahead. There's a new way of doing things, which is okay. I think that's good. That'll happen in MLS one day as well. So change can be real positive, and hopefully it's all there for them. It's either put up or shut up at this point, and they got the greatest opportunity they'll ever have by hosting this World Cup and having a chance to really win over the public for our sport.
It makes me think about, I mean, when the schedule change does go through, I wonder how MLS is going to handle that, how they're going to handle that period in between the season ending and the new season beginning with a new schedule. Be interesting.
I do think now the sport in our country is well respected. I think we all are confident we could have.
Would you agree that soccer is well respected in the country of the United States? Do you see lots of soccer highlights on ESPN or the various sports shows and things that you watch? Do you see soccer conversation often outside of your, the MLS things that you're clicking or the various ESPN FC things you're clicking? The direct to soccer things. Like, is there more national attention and respect for soccer in your opinion? Let me know in the comments.
Have 5 major league sports in America. We're a big country. It's accepted. Things are moving forward. I think it's just a great time. So hopefully U.S. Soccer does their job. They host a great World Cup and the team does well. I think the sport has a great future.
I mean, the last World Cup in America, 1994, is what inspired me and a whole generation of soccer players to begin with way back in the 90s and got us all playing soccer to begin with. I mean, and this is hopefully what it does for our new generation where they're going to be able to build upon that one that already exists thanks to the 94 World Cup. It's hopefully could lead to the actual golden generation of U.S. soccer. But that's going to be many years down the line, probably, 10, 15.
For the national team and for MLS, I think there's so many positive things that are ahead, and hopefully we show that in the world.
And then maybe in that 10, 15 year time, when with that second generation to build upon, maybe there's going to be a time where USA could be in the top 5 nations, where they could be a true contender to win the World Cup.
Cup as well, that we're a country that's improving and will be competitive in our home country for the World Cup.
A couple more questions, Bruce, and I appreciate your time, and I'll let you go on it. But I want to piggyback on what you just said there. I've often found, and you've been around longer than I have when it comes to soccer, and you've seen the growth and the arc and the ups and downs. When it comes to the American soccer public out there, whether it's the players or the fans or just the culture and community, I often talk about the insecurity that we have, and we seem to have to apologize for what we aren't when it comes to our soccer. When you look at
that's not everybody, but there is a section that does.
American player, and whether it's a player in MLS or USL or just an American player out there, do you think that they are downgraded either by themselves or domestically by others or people from the outside in terms of how good they are? And I guess the ultimate question would be, are there MLS players right now that you think are of the same or maybe even better quality than players that are playing at much higher, quote unquote, higher levels around the world?
Diego Luna?
Are there MLS players right now that you think could play on the national team and could be successful in the way that, years ago you brought MLS players and said, if he's good enough, he's good enough.
Chicago Fire's goalkeeper?
If you put him on the field, and obviously they rewarded you.
Although after that 7-2 game, yeesh, maybe not.
And ultimately rewarded the country.
We have a number of MLS players that could do very well at the international level. However, at this point in time, you can't introduce new players. I think without having any experience in the international game, it's real difficult. So
that is an interesting thing. One of the things Toke and I and DPG were talking about in our podcast over the past few weeks is the idea that a new player is going to arise in this crop that we might not even have foreseen, and that player might greatly help the U.S. at the World Cup. Here's Bruce is saying, temper those expectations.
I can't imagine a whole lot of new faces being part of our roster for the next World Cup. But I do believe that the American player continues to improve. And look at our players that are playing overseas. and the successes they're having with real quality teams. Who would have thought we'd have players playing at Milan, Juventus, those some of the biggest clubs in the world. We have players in Germany, in Belgium, in England, in Holland, yeah, in Italy, obviously, and they're doing great. That wasn't the case when you and your 3 or 4 friends were overseas, getting beat up and being maybe not respected the way you should have been. And I think now, they're making their marks in football in Europe, and that's a real positive. And I think you're going to see in the future. We have, even in our club here, we have young players that I'm absolutely surprised at their quality at this point in time. That was never the case 20 years ago. So the American players improve.
MLS is in the best place of player talent wise that it's ever been. Yet the product, I still think it's suffering and it's not getting enough American eyes. But we talked about that in a previous video. You can check that out when all they're talking about the schedule.
Improving. They're going to continue to get great opportunities abroad, and our league's going to grow, where our league is going to be one day as good as the top leagues in the world. So I think the sport has a real positive future in our country.
I lied. I'm going to sneak one in here right before my last question because you just brought up American players. But I also want to give you the opportunity to talk quickly about the American coach. Do you think that the American coach is, I guess, disrespected or not respected enough internationally as to what they can do?
Yes,
Yes.
I don't doubt that at all. And I tell these stories frequently. When I went abroad and met with coaches and sat down with them and have been kind of surprised at where they're at. And I still say to this day, I've learned more by talking with a coach in the NFL, the NBA, or baseball than I have speaking with coaches in Europe or South America.
Whoa,
I think
that is wild.
coaching in our country is simply outstanding. It really is.
By the way, football coaching is in its best place it's ever been.
Have we trailed a little bit in our sport? Yes, but today, I look around the league. There's some great American coaches in our league, and I know that better than anybody because I've been around all of these guys for a number of years. We have some simply outstanding coaches in the league, and I think they have a great future, and our sport and our national team programs are going to be elite one day. I have no doubt about that.
Last question, Bruce Arena, I'll let you go. I ask this to everybody that comes on the show. It can be big or small, on the field, off the field. What is the best thing about American soccer, and what is the worst thing about American soccer?
Before you hear Bruce say what he thinks, let us know in the comments below what you think.
The best thing about American soccer is that we're growing and we're very diverse. And we have a great following, not only in our communities, but now players from around the world want to be here. I mean, if I had a conversation yesterday with somebody talking to me about players around the world that want to come into the league. And if I mentioned their names, who they were, you'd be very surprised. So I think that's the best part of American soccer right now is
And that's maybe a little tease about some of the names that might be coming to MLS post World Cup.
a lot of people want to be part of it, and maybe
If you have any ideas for some of these names, I would love to read them in the comments below about predictions of potential players that could be making the move to MLS after World Cup 2026. And if you want to add a little extra bonus, maybe predict what team they might end up on. Curious.
that's due to the Messi factor. That he has certainly helped us grab the attention of people around the world, and so the sport continues to grow in our country because I think Messi's playing a big role with that. To be quite frank, what's the bad part of soccer in our country?
Pay to play?
I don't know if I can even say that anymore. I mean, if you asked me that question 10, 20 years ago, I could rattle off 10 things. I don't think I can do it anymore. It's real positive. We're in a real upswing, and and the World Cup is going to really help the rest of the world see how well respected the sport is in our.
Do you guys agree with that? Do you think that there really are not a lot of negatives to American soccer right now, and that there's only a lot of positives to see? I think there are a lot of positives, but I think there are a few negatives. But Bruce can't name any. He's seen a lot of good progress, and he's happy to see it. So that's definitely a fair viewpoint.
Country and how well we are moving in the right direction as a potentially a world power in this sport one day.
Well, you know, Bruce, I don't think that I'm telling you or your wife or family anything that you don't know. At times you have been looked at it, you know, maybe a little bit of a grumpy old man, curmudgeon type of thing. And the fact that you ended this on such a positive note that you couldn't even find something that was problematic when it came
I would have
to
probably
American soccer.
Lalas would have been the right answer.
There you go. Now we're talking. Now that's it. Well, regardless,
love that.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for spending some time here with me. Thank you so much for everything that you have done and continue to do.
And thank you so much, Alexi and Bruce, for that great little podcast and that great little discussion. I thought that was awesome. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Love to hear it. Join us for more Enemies of Fire. Subscribe for more. Help us hit our goal of 500 subscribers. Kick that like button, and we'll see you guys next time here on Enemies of Fire. Thank you. See you guys later.